am I done debating whether I'm going to discuss this subject or not? I don't know. Maybe I think I will. Let's see. All right. I mentioned yesterday that I will talk about this. I don't want to make a big deal out of talking about this, but for those of you who've been following me, following my life, hanging out, we're all friends. If not, whatever. I still love you. I am going to get the surgery, like the interior of my mouth. You can hear me lisping now. Like I control my lisp. It's taken years to be able to. And the funny thing is I talk for a living because I've learned how to control it. But it's still there. So I'm having this. I had a surgery. For those of you, if you've heard the story, play along because I'm just going to get this all out. And there's a reason why I am going to discuss this. So, going in for the surgery on the 3rd of next month to fix the lisp and, like some, not cosmetic. I'm not having a freaking, one of those done or whatever, but I'm having it done on the inside of my mouth because of the surgery. It left me with some, too much skin and whatever. So I am doing that surgery. And it is giving me some pause because I've mentioned this and I mentioned it yesterday that I might mention it today. And over the course of me yapping for the past hour, I decided I was going to do it. I was judging the amount of people who are watching and whatever. But the reason why I'm mentioning this, and I'm going to bring up my medical history and the challenges that I've experienced and the obstacles that I faced and the birth defects that I was born with is for inspiration, not for any other reason. I don't not like talking about it. I don't not like talking about it. It's not like it's something that I try to hide or whatever, but it's something that I've never taken the time to articulate in one place at one time. And I'm even going to bring in the mic for this. Hello, microphone. That way you're hearing me properly because I'm going to sit back. I've talked about it here and there in little dribs and drabs, but I'm going to consolidate it for you because going through the situations that I have now, I don't like the word triggered. I don't like the word, I don't like that mentality of, oh my God, this is triggering me. However, it's because this has gone on for a year and a half and I've had to revisit, either the dentist or the surgical center, which is in one complex, off and on. I just paid an anesthesiologist bill today of $831 for gassing me for freaking 3 hours. I guess that was a good deal from what I was told. I actually went in there in person to pay it, and they're like, well, we don't take it. Go online and pay it. I was like, you don't want my money? No, go online and pay that. All right, whatever. I digress. So it is getting a little bit under my skin because it's dragging out. And I am going to eventually have to have surgery done on this shoulder. Although there is a chiropractor who says that it'll be the most painful thing in my entire life. Heard that before, but I don't think so. But he's going to put my shoulder back, my bicep back in place without any anesthesia, without surgery. I don't know if I want to risk it or not. But then again, surgery is surgery. So my brain has been hearkening back to situations that I faced when I was young, and I thought I'd take the time to talk about it so, you know, you understand me a little more, but more for inspiration. Stick with the story and you'll understand why. Because if I overcame the challenges and obstacles that I was brought into this world with, and I did, and I still am, you can too. You know, you can definitely overcome too. Now, I'll preface by saying, I know people who've had worse. Let me put it that way. I've known people who've had worse. I've known people who've had much worse things that they've had to deal with and pulled through successfully, and they were an inspiration to me. I was surrounded by people. I've met a lot of people in my life who've had challenges. Mine weren't mine. I was born with. I've known people, you know, in the military that got their legs blown off. I know people, you know, I know a lot of people who've had physical challenges, and mine isn't all that special in the grand scheme of things, but they're mine nonetheless, and they're still making a life for themselves, and I decided to do the same. So let me wind it back a little for you. My mother, let me wet my whistle a bit. My mother, who's no longer with us, she was prescribed a drug. Now, this is a prescription. You know, you guys can probably figure it out. I'm not going to talk about it or glorify it. She was prescribed a drug before I was born for a certain malady that she had. And that drug is no longer on the market. You cannot sue the company who produced said drug. It was supposed to be the big miracle drug that was going to save the world. But she had that drug around for several years after it was pulled from the market. Probably about 4 or 5 years, if my math is correct. So it was still being prescribed afterwards. It took a long time to get it off the shelves. Doctors were still like giving it out like candy because it did have some legitimate reasons. It did have some, it served its purpose to a degree. Now, when it comes to birth defects, however, all the birth defects that when a pregnant mother would take this stuff, the birth defects were similar throughout all the cases, and it mostly had to do with the extremities. So, when I was born, and again, I was diagnosed, you know, and they mentioned said drug, which I'm not going to speak on, because it would downplay those who suffered worse than I did when their mother got a hold of this stuff. And this is a legal drug, you know, don't get it twisted. I don't want to downplay the situations that they had with it, so I'm not going to mention it, but it all has to do with the extremities. There's a lot worse cases. The doctors that my mother dealt with when I was young were hesitant to say what it was. There was never class action suits. They even made a movie about this shit. But my case wasn't horrendous, so there was no recovery. There was no, you know, I'm not a spring chicken. I ain't old either. So there was no like, you know, call Lerner and Rowe the place to go to sue this company or whatever. You can't sue Pfizer, you know, for this stuff either. You know, the government protects that stuff. All right. So when I was born, the birth defects that I had were in my legs. My legs were, when I came out from mom's, my feet, all right, it was twofold. My feet were twisted almost this way. Feet are supposed to be this way, right? Dunk, 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 dunk. My feet were twisted almost almost parallel. They were almost like this. If this was the bottom of my feet, they were almost this. It was like this, right? And my legs were like that. So my knees came in off to the side and my feet were like that. So obviously I couldn't walk. The other thing that I had was what's called floating eye is the layman's term for it. So I had floating eye. So I had zero control over either my left or my right eye. They wandered. This one was over here. This one, I couldn't control. I couldn't do this like everyone else can. They just had a mind of their own. They were detached. I had the muscles, like the eyeball is here, and they have muscles that look like this, that go to this side and this side. Mine were detached. My eyes were just there with no musculature holding them. They weren't falling out because you have the nerves and everything, but they were just like doing that thing. They were all over the place doing the hippy dippies. So for all intents and purposes, I was blind. I could see, but I couldn't make sense of anything that I saw because one eye could be over here, looking over here, and one eye could be like looking at the sky. So it made no sense because we see in stereoscopic vision. We have our eyes are capable of developing depth perception and 3D and whatnot. So I wasn't capable of any of that. So for all intents and purposes, my eyes didn't work. I mean, if I was lucky and they were both like on one side, but that never happened. They were just like, woo, all over the place. So basically I was born blind. So I couldn't walk and I was born blind and I had a really bad speech impediment. This, if I'm really tired, this is basically how I talk. But I've trained myself after years and years and years to talk normal. But I do have a speech impediment, and I was born with that. All right. So what did they do with Bror Fredrik? So, when I came out, they gave moms the option. They would just like, it was too late. I mean, like today, they probably have these, like in, certain people, given their druthers, would have made it retroactive, ABORTION, you know what I'm saying? But no, my mother carried me, whatever, and we're in the right camera? Yeah, we're in the right camera. It sucks if I was looking at the wrong camera the whole time. I'm buying time. So they told moms, right? They said this kid here, and I had my sister, and she was fine, but she's 2 years older than me. They're like, this kid, you're gonna have to put him in an institution. And back then, an institution was like, it's like the shit you see in the movies, with the blue tile walls and whatever, and I was, mind you, I was young. I was an infant. So I wasn't aware of all this. I found out about it later, and I read my mother's, when my mother passed, I read her diary, she sent me her diary before she died, in fact, along with my medical records and also like stacks of stuff. And I read through it and I was just like, whoa, I didn't even know some of the stuff that I found out after reading it. So they suggested that she put me in an institution, that I was institutionalized, not for crazy, but they were just like, you can't take care of this kid, wheelchair and blind and probably won't be able to talk correctly. That sucks. But she chose not to. All right. So what happened next? She chose not to. I was that way up until, let's see. I was about 4 or 5 years old when I don't know how this took place or whatever. My mother was on, she was on some assistance and whatnot, even though she worked because of me and, the medical issues and whatever. I mean, I could eat and all that stuff. I just really couldn't see or walk or do much anything else, So she contacted this doctor who said, he was going to fix my eyes. I don't know how that connection was made. God. So I remember this doctor. It was Dr. Singh. Big old turban. It was a cheap, big old turban on his head. Red like a ruby. Dr. Singh. I don't know if he's still around, but what he did was he's like, I'm going to do this. Now, mind you, this isn't like 10 years ago. This is back in the day. I mean, this is like, like a decade past, like putting leeches on people. Not that I'm that old, but medical science was not the same way when I had this done compared to these days. Now, you can remote operate on people from a million miles away. Whatever. This was like the Stone Age by comparison. So what he did was he went inside my eyeballs, and I remember that he was the last thing I saw. I was looking up. He was the last person I saw. He's just like, 2 thumbs up, bro. Last person I saw with the turban, the whole bit. Cool dude. From what I know, I don't know. I was like 4, but I remember, like kids remember that first birthday. I remember surgeries. So. And the doctors. So I went in and did, they went in and did that. And what he did was they took my eye, he took the muscles that are supposed to hold my eyes straight on this side and this side. And like, I don't know, he stitched them to my eyeballs where the, what do they call them? Incursions or whatever, where the point where they're supposed to go. And he put them, he stitched my eyes in place. He took the muscle, stretched it, connected it to the eyeball on this side, connected it on that side on both eyes. And then they covered up my eyes. And I couldn't really see much anyway, but I didn't see much of nothing for a long time. It was about 6 months. And they kept the patches over and all the rest of that stuff. And I remember when they would take the patches off, they'd say, "Can you see light?" That was the question that they always asked. They would like shine like an old light in my face, and they'd ask me if I could see the light. And I'd be like, "Yeah, I can see," but I couldn't open my eyes, It's like, "Can you see light?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can see through my eyelids and whatnot." I was like, "Yeah, I can see light." And they were like, "Oh, that is so good." I remember his accent to this day. "Oh, that is so good, brother." So yeah. But it took a long time. They weren't ready to uncover them. So it was like months. They would just change the bandage, I don't know what they did, whatever. In the corner of my eyes, if I look in one direction or the other, I could still see, like the scarring in there, whatever. Okay, whatever. 6 months later, they unwrap it, all the bandages. And I remember like the hot compresses and whatnot. And they would just like, try to open your eyes, try to open your eyes, try to open your eyes. And the first person I saw was Dr. Singh with his big old red turban on. "Can you see me, bro?" And I'm just like, "Yeah, bro, I could see it." It was all like blurry and stuff, But I could see him, I could see him. Yeah. So yeah, took a few years of therapy after that. We used to have to get on the Q113 bus to the Q11 bus and go to Jamaica Hospital. And they'd sit me in like this machine, like this freaking ancient contraption that they used to have like, a beach ball cartoon and a beach ball. And they used to start them together and then they'd move it around the screen and then they'd split it into two and do, like, it was like training. It was like exercise, you know, like that. I mean, I could still freaking commercials. I could still cross my eyes if I want to, you know, I could still do that. I don't know if you can see any difference, but I'm not looking at anything right now. I'm just looking at like two cameras. I could still do it. So after like years of training the eyes, bam, I can see. I got 20/20 vision now. So this is a part. I'm not even on the legs yet, but I got 20/20 vision now. Don't need glasses. They're still blue, you know? And I made a career out of seeing. That's what I mean. You see where the story's going? If I overcame that, and that was like thanks to a lot of things came into play, God being one of them, and I'll say that. I could see, and I made a career out of it. I couldn't see shit, but I made a career out of seeing because I was a photographer my entire adult life before the stupid pandemic shut down my business. Well, before the stupid governor, due to the pandemic, shut down my business. It's all I've ever known, all I've ever done. What did it take to be a photographer? Eyes. Kind of cool, huh? And to this day, they still function. They get a little tired here and there, but they still function. Still don't need glasses. So shout out Dr. Singh. I don't know if he's still with us. He was, you know, he had to be in his 30s or 40s when he did that operation. And, you know, maybe he's not, but shout out him, man. All right, so what happened with the legs? Ooh, that's a whole nother story. So now I can see. My damn legs. I can see my legs all jacked up and whatnot. So what they did from the time I was a kid, like, I think they started at 2. I don't think I was 1, but I think they started at 2, putting my legs in braces, because when you're that young, your bones are still kind of mushy and whatnot. And they figured maybe if all went well, they could twist them enough to put them, you know, in some semblance of legs. It didn't really work out that way. You know, think Forrest Gump. You know, I grew up, like when I was a kid, they had like these special shoes. Here's the shoes, and ancient technology. They had bars, metal flat bars on the bottom that they would, like braces, they would just crank them in every once in a while, you know, and try to manipulate it. But it wasn't really working because it was torturous. I remember that as a kid, just being like, fuck, you know, just like they're trying to like twist them. It wasn't working. And it, besides being the thigh bones going in this direction, and then all the calf bones being splayed, and my feet being like that, there was just too much going on to brace. So they figured maybe they could get me to walk and whatnot, you know, if they at least twisted my feet back so I didn't walk like this. You know, they tried to twist them this way, but then what was happening, my legs were like, brah, you know, the legs were starting to like get all freaked out. So that wasn't working. But yet again, you know, I guess God intervened and hooked moms up with, and mind you, she was the one, like, we'd never had the greatest relationship, but she didn't stick me in an institution. So yeah, so what they decided to do was break my legs. So they broke my thigh bones first, because they figured those are the biggest and the strongest. So they broke my thigh bones first in 2 places. Like they turned the thigh bone 1, they broke out a middle spot. So my thigh bone was 3 pieces. And then they straightened it. And then they broke this one and straightened that. That was like step 1. and they got those bones to grow perfectly straight, perfectly within reason, right? My knees were cool. That was a miracle. My knees were cool the whole time. The knees functioned. They did that thing. The kneecap was in place. So I got lucky with that. So they broke my thighs in 2 places first, reset them the best they could straight. Dealt with that for a while. I think I waited, it was like another year before they proceeded. And the whole time they're still doing the torture rack thing, trying to twist everything, right? Like, just think Forrest Gump, like in the beginning where he had all that stuff and whatever. That was me if I wasn't sitting there. But now I could see stuff, which was kind of cool. So that gave me the impetus to like be like, yeah, if I could see, I could walk. If I see, I can walk. That was what my little baby brain was saying. If I could see, I can walk. So I'm glad they did the eyes first, because if they did the legs first and then the eyes, I wouldn't have had the same motivation, because I couldn't see shit where I was going or why I wanted to get there. So why should I go through the legs? So they gave me the eyeballs first, which I think was genius, so I could see. I'm like, I'm getting to the refrigerator. I'm getting to the whatever, you know? So then about a year, a little more than a year later, I'm saying this because I read my mom's, like back then they used to have like medical journals for your kids, and you know, your moms would write all the, you know, I had hay fever, and so she wrote all this out. So I spent like a month reading all this stuff. And you know, I had all the hospital records too. I don't remember it per se. Oh yeah. So about a year later, they started on my lower legs. So the lower legs needed to be broken twice in one place. So yeah, the upper was broken once, but in 2 places. The bottom was twice, but broken only in 1 place. So all in total, they broke my legs 3 times for a total of 2, 4, 6 breaks and resets. Yeah, so that wasn't fun. You know, again, this is like, you know, the Jurassic period, so things were what they were. But what happened was, once they broke them and reset them, then all the braces and whatever were able to do their magic. Then my feet came in, you know, then to this day, this foot is still this way, even though this one is relatively straight. My right one is slightly off, you know, and if I get tired, it can tweak a little bit. After therapy and all that other stuff, I mean, I never went full-blown Forrest Gump, you know, running across the field and all that type of stuff. I for all intents and purposes, I don't run. I could run upstairs, you know, no problem. I'm never going to be like, you know, an athlete. I mean, you know, whatever, like the Forrest Gump character. But just think that. And I think it was finally, when all was said and done, I was about 10 years old by the time I was done with the braces and walking. So it took 6 years, 7 years of going through all that stuff, from like wheelchair and being carried around and sat down and things, and you know, having to be fed and not seeing shit to seeing shit, and you know, going through all those surgeries and whatnot. And those were rough, because those weren't like Dr. Singh wasn't there. That was just being like, all right, you know, threw me in, you know, corner and start freaking chiseling away at me. You know, those are kind of like terrifying. I remember that when I was a kid, and it hurt. It hurt. It hurt. I remember that. It hurt. So I'm, you know, pain. That's why I set my own damn shoulder. Pain. I make dinner for that bitch. You know, pain ain't no thing. So, yeah. So it took about 6 years before I was walking on my own. But I had goals, you know. I was just like, shit, I got plans. I got big plans, as Biggie would say. I got big plans. So yeah, it wasn't long before I was sleigh riding with all the other kids and doing stuff, you know. And the funny thing about that whole story, again, getting back to the motivation, was if I could do that, ain't much you can't do. Because yet again, what do I do now? I walk. I walk and I walk, and I could walk to frickin' St. George tonight if I wanted. If the weather was 60 degrees, and walk to California. I was born being told this frickin' kid ain't gonna be walking, so you might as well stick him in a frickin' hospital for the rest of his life, you know? And now I walk. Not only that, when I was in my bodybuilding peak, I was leg squatting 1,200 pounds. 1,200 pounds for 3 reps and 1,000 pounds for 8 on a leg press sets, like 4 or 5 sets at 1,000 pounds with these freaking legs that they had to break and twist and mangle and all the rest of that, you know? And I've biked, I climbed mountains, I've done all sorts of stuff, you know, with these, you know, the ones that I was born with, and I'm thankful for that. So there's nothing that you guys can. There's nothing I can't overcome because I did it. Same for you. And the lisp, that was speech therapy. That was years and years and years of speech therapy. Like from 1st grade to 6th grade. I got out of one of my regular classes, so maybe I'm stunad and something else. I don't know what class I got out of, probably history or whatever. But I was sent to, they had a speech pathologist or therapist in there. And that's how I fixed it after the mouth. It's funny that I had the mouth surgery, and that's probably the mouth surgery that I had with the overgrown tori bone and having no soft palate. Like I had no soft palate. Like under here was solid bone. You know, you put your finger there. That's what it's called, your soft palate. If you took a needle, you can stick a needle straight through there, comes up under your tongue. I didn't have that. That was all enclosed by bone. It was hard. So this event probably goes all the way back to that too. Wow, that just dawned on me. Anyway, so yeah, kind of got off track a little bit. Lost my train of thought. But yeah, that probably had something to do with it too, you know. And the speech therapy. Yeah, that's how I know how to do that, because if I don't take the time to make sure that my lisp is not getting in the way of my speech patterns, you would notice it. But I've trained myself and my voice over years and years and time that you cannot notice that I did indeed have a speech impediment when I was born. So I've made a living out of my voice too, you know, after not being able to technically talk all that well, but that required training. See, I can modulate and train I can have my voice sound however I want it to sound. You notice that, right? And after they do this surgery on the 3rd, I'll have even more control over it, because that's one of the reasons I want to do it, because it was freaking me the absolute F out that that speech impediment was coming back. But it had to be done. But I was starting to notice it. And I was just like, fuck that, you know? So, yeah, and that's why I was able to, you heard me, you guys, well, some of you guys heard me after I got that surgery, and I was I was a train wreck. But how long did that take to fix? I mean, I was sounding halfway normal within a week because I was doing this. A, B, C, D, EFGHIJKLMNOP 5566 5566 77 88 99 11 22 33 44 55 for hours. For hours, trust me. So I'm gonna have to do it again because I ain't gonna be sounding like this. And this is my my regular voice when I relax. It's not generally like this, but I can do a commercial. How would you like to buy the best microphone known to man? Link in the description. That's years of training. But my regular voice is more like this. It's a little more animated and whatnot. But yeah, the day it's done, it ain't gonna sound all that good. But we'll get it back. So the reason why I just exposed myself to you, it's because if I can do that, like I said, I know people who suffered way worse than that, but that was no picnic, Like they would just, I was written off, I was written off. The freaking establishment, so F the establishment, F this. That's why I was not down with that. And I took a lot of heat for that. I lost friends. I lost a lot of shit over talking about that. But people did not understand that I had a reason, because it was things like that that caused me to have to almost be written off, as a human, as a person. So I ain't playing with that. We don't even know what type of things might happen to children based on that. There's people out there dropping like flies, So, no, I wasn't down with that. I'm just like, no, I was almost written off, If my mother was a different kind of person, like I said, we never got along. But if my mother was just like, I ain't dealing with this shit, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I probably wouldn't even be on this planet, I'd be a burden of society. But just didn't go down that way. Thanks to God, thanks to moms, thanks to Dr. Singh, thanks to those bone-cracking freakazoids who messed with my legs, thanks to all them nurses, and thanks to my own freaking testicular fortitude, of just wanting life, craving life, I wasn't playing. I don't play now, That's why I have the attitude that I have. I don't freaking play, but I play hard, I grab life by the freaking balls, and you should too. And that's why I'm telling you this. If I could do this, still maintain my body, I still had a life. I still have a life now. I keep fit, I'm active, I'm doing all this shit that a bunch of freaking doctors said, or whatever, lawyers perhaps. Lawyers are probably the one that put his fucking ass in an institution because they didn't want to deal with it. If I can get past that, you can get past anything. All you people out there, doesn't matter what you're facing or what your loved ones are facing, there's always hope, there's always a way to overcome, and if not, it is what it is. What's waiting for you on the side's better than this anyway. But given a choice, I'd rather be here. That way I could help people, You know what I'm saying? You feel me? Cool. Like I said, the reason why I decided to do this was for inspiration. I don't want anybody's pity. I never needed anyone's pity. Maybe a little understanding here and there, because I do have some other things going on that we ain't talking about. Some 3 and 4 letter acronym shits, but if you haven't figured that out already, but nothing harmful, like I count stuff, things have to be diagonally correct and whatever, but that I could live with, but I just want to serve as an inspiration. And it's in the past. That's in the past too. But I brought it up so many times in little pieces here and there. I figured I'd take the time to just tell the whole story. And if anyone asks me in the future, I can refer them back to this. I might even cut this out as a separate segment, but this is not about me. It's about being thankful, you know, and it's about you guys and you guys being thankful too, and being thankful for each other, you know, because we all have opportunities in life. We have opportunities to be good. We have opportunities to be bad. We have opportunities to fail. We have opportunities to succeed, but they're all opportunities, you know, but you have to develop an attitude like, you know, there's an obstacle in front of you. What are you going to do? Are you going to give up just because someone says you can't, you know? Or you're gonna, I mean, there's so many ways around an obstacle. Can you climb it? No. Can you dig under it? No. Can you go to the left, go to the right? Maybe. Can you flow through it like water? Can you just hit that shit head on? You know, there's ways around it. There's ways through everything that you're gonna face in your life, and all the people in your life are gonna face in their lives. And you can be there for them. Never write anyone off. There is no such thing as a lost cause. Unless they sold their soul to you-know-who, then they're a freaking lost cause, and I ain't even fucking with them. But until that point, don't give up on anything or anyone. Not your dreams, not other people, not your loved ones, not your marriage, unless, you know, someone's out there doing the fluky dookies or whatnot. Just freaking grab life by the balls, you know? Don't let life happen to you. You happen to life. You know what I'm saying?
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.